Now we are starting a dedicated section on Redux. Redux is a third-party framework to work with complex state management. Let's first of all open the official site. I'll say redux.js.org. So this is the official site for the Redux framework. Now if I scroll down, you'd see that there are few more links like React Redux and Redux Toolkit. When we are working with Redux inside a React application, then we need to install React Redux as well. The React Redux is the official React bindings for Redux. That means when you have to use Redux in your React application, you need to install React Redux as well. There is also Redux Toolkit, but we will be looking at Redux Toolkit at a later stage. At the moment, if I click here, then you see the official site of React Redux as well. And if I click on the Getting Started, you see that if I want to create a Redux application with a template, I can use npx create react app, then give the application, that is the project name. You use the template Redux. If you want to use it with TypeScript, you can say redux-typescript. So the project will be created with predefined boilerplate code for Redux. Though we won't be doing it, we will be starting a new application and we will be configuring everything step by step. So this is just for the information. So Redux is really easy and effective. When I say easy, I really mean it. I will take you through simple steps with an application and you will master the subject for sure. Take a look at the same application we saw in Context API, but there we just made total a global entity. Here we will do more. As I mentioned about simple steps, let's go through the steps. The first step is you have to create the global store and reducer. How to do that? We will check the syntax at a later stage. But in our application, this was the data. We had the products data, we had the cart data and the total data. All this data, let us assume that we put in a data object and that we need to make global. The second step is use the provider to pass or provide the global store data to various components. Generally, when we have to make it global, we wrap the app component with the provider. The third step is you have to access the store data at a component level. Now you can use the use selector or use store hook to get the data at a component level, or you can use the connect method if you are using the class component. But that's a more practical approach we will see as we proceed. But in short, we need to make the data available at component level and we have this kind of syntax or other way to make it available. The fourth step is dispatch action if there are events. Now take an example. Here we have the drop down button and on change of every item, we see that the cart is updated and same is the case with the total component. This means you may have various events at different component level. They all are written at one place in Redux and you have to dispatch those events. As you can see in the code that on change of, for example, this drop down, I may call a function called purchase handler and that function may have something to dispatch. So that is the event is dispatched with the type of action and some data. You don't have to worry about these terminologies as well because we have dedicated discussion, dedicated tutorial for this particular item, that is handling events with Redux. Let's try to visualize the concept of reducer and dispatch together. So we have these three components, the purchase, cart and total component. Here we have the global store. How we will make it, that we are going to see it practically. But assume that at the moment this is a global store. This products data is referred here and the drop down is filled with this product data. Now the next point is once this data is filled, let's say on selection of the product, we want to add the data to the cart. This means there is an action, there is an event. Whenever there is an event, you have to write that event inside the reducer function. What I mean to say is, for example, there is a function. Remember, I am writing just a function here where I am writing the process of adding the data to the cart. This means reducer is a kind of global function which can access the global store. But your components are at different level. They are segregated from this global store and global reducer function. In Redux, whenever there is an event, let's say here you have the add to cart button, and when the user clicks, it should actually dispatch the action to the reducer. Now if you see this dispatch, there is an object literal here in the dispatch method. So whenever there is an action from the component, you dispatch the action type, and also you may have some data. Like in this second syntax, we want to say that I am supposed to add the data and there is some additional information. Here I am passing the data which I want to add, for example. That data which you pass with the dispatch is called as payload. You can name it whatever you want to. Here in this example, there is an object literal. Let me show you one more example. Here I say dispatch type is equal to add value :0. That means the payload name I have given is value, and I'm not passing any object literal. I'm just passing a simple numeric value. So this can be a string, a number, an object literal, an array. In short, whatever information you pass with the dispatch is called as payload, and you can name it whatever you want. We will see this practically to get more clear idea about this. Again, I just want to summarize that whenever there is an action, whenever there is an event, you actually dispatch the action, and whenever the dispatch method is called on any event, there will always be an object passed to reducer. So the object which you pass inside the dispatch, maybe this one or this one, that is passed to action, that is here in this parameter. So you can check which is the action type and what is the payload. So you have this dispatch object passed to action, and then you can refer it the way you want to. So reducer becomes a global function where you are going to deal with the state, you are going to manipulate the state, and dispatch is a method which is called from the component on every event. For example, let's say we want to add one more functionality here in the cart component, that one can remove an item from the cart. Whenever any of these button is clicked, you will be dispatching an action. So you'll say dispatch type remove, and here in the payload you may say item index. I'm naming the payload as item index, and I pass the value, that is the index. This dispatch, that is on click of these buttons, the dispatch is returned. When you click any of these buttons, it's going to dispatch, and dispatch will call the reducer. This means you will be writing the process of removing the item from the cart. So this cart will be updated from this component. So component is dispatching an action and also calling the reducer function, and reducer function, depending on the type of action, it changes the cart here. So this is how the dispatch, reducer and global store works together. Once we see it practically, you will have a better idea, but this is the flow of Redux application as well. Now let's talk about relative questions. The first question is, which package do you need to implement Redux with your React application? So it's not only the Redux, you have to install Redux and React Redux, because React Redux is the essential library we need in the React application to deal with the Redux global store. So two packages you need. The second question is, in which scenario do you have to use Redux or a similar framework? Well, whenever you have an application which has a larger size, larger data set, certainly you will observe some data which is shared among various components or entire application. So those are the scenarios where you need to have Redux in your application. But not all applications need Redux, that's for sure.